I'm gonna do a brief skate maintenance, and in between doing different things, we'll take some time to just chat and stuff like that while we're pulling out our bearings and stuff that requires more of my focus than other things. I told Jedi that I wanted to start out talking about cleaning your gear, which is not necessarily skate maintenance, but is very important, especially coming back from, as we come back from this situation, it will be important for us to all have a fresh start, make sure all of the bacteria and grossness is off of our gear if we are able to. So I'm just gonna run through very quickly how I clean my gear, things that you might wanna avoid when you're cleaning your gear, that kind of thing. So for me, I usually start by soaking my gear either for a couple of hours or overnight in just distilled vinegar. It helps kill a lot of the bacteria. It helps with the smell and all of that fun stuff. So I'll let it soak overnight, at least for a couple of hours. And then I will put it in my washing machine with some gentle laundry soap. I usually either use like stuff that doesn't have dye in it. You can use like my sister a couple summers ago left some baby laundry soap here, which I have no need for, but I used it to wash my gear. So something gentle, something that doesn't have a lot of chemicals in it, because you don't want it to break down any of the stuff within your gear. Like it can affect the Velcro, and like if there's any adhesive in it, it can cause problems with that. So just something gentle. I try not to use the pods because they usually have more crap in them. But anyway, so once you wash your gear on a gentle cycle, so it's not clonking around everywhere, you want to hang dry it. You don't want to put it in your dryer because, again, the temperatures can mess with the composition of the gear. So I have a hockey equipment dryer that I put mine in, but before I had that, I would just hang it on coat hangers, and then you can hang it on the curtain rod for your shower. So if you don't have, or you can hang it in a closet, whatever, as long as there's not something like up against it so it can air dry. Again, I'm sure most of you know that kind of stuff, but for the people out there that aren't sure how to clean it, don't be afraid to stick it in the washing machine. Just run it on a gentle cycle. Don't use, I try to use like warm water instead of hot water, so it, again, doesn't compromise the gear, that kind of thing.
Do you suggest maybe soaking it a while in the washer?
I usually do usually do like a pre-soak and then like an extra rinse. That's very important. Yep. So that one helps get the vinegar out of it that I use to soak it in, and then it also does a really good job of making sure to get that detergent out. Again, I would run like on the easy side of the detergent, something, but you know, something gentle. I usually wash like mine and Nathan's gear together, so don't be afraid that you're going to put too much in there. Because I do 2 sets at once. Why would I do it more than once? Anyway, yeah, so that would be my recommendation for everybody before we come back. So we all come back smelling nice and fresh.
Can I add one thing too? Just if you
Absolutely.
haven't watched it yet, put your Velcro and stuff together so it doesn't come out like a huge tangled mess.
Yep, that's a good point. So like what she means is to make sure that like the Velcro is secured on, like, so with your knee pads, put the Velcro together, your elbow pads, wrist guards, make sure all the Velcro is closed so that it doesn't turn into like this ball and stretch out your Velcro and things like that. Good point. We're gonna move to our skates. Mine are remarkably dirty because 1, I hadn't cleaned them in a while, and 2, I chose to go outdoor skating when it was a little wet outside, so there is a little bit of mud and gunk under here. For those of you that don't know, there is a difference between indoor and outdoor wheels, and there's a difference in the kind of things that you want to try to do when you're skating outdoors just for your safety, because a lot of times the sidewalks and the pavement, like on your streets and stuff, are not the same kind of stuff that we normally skate on. So like trying to do hockey stops or crazy stuff, Dana, is not the best thing to do when you try to skate outside. So just be cognizant of the way your wheels feel on the pavement before you try to do anything crazy. Also, even though you seem really cool, wear your gear, because we skate on flat things, not on not flat things. So even though it seems cool, you could also bust your ass. Last year when I took my nephew to a skating rink and thought I would be cool and forgot I was in rental skates, and they don't have toe stops the way these do. And I busted both of my knees. So no matter how good of a skater you are or how safe you think you're gonna be, just wear your gear.
It's so easy to, like, all you need is one small fall on your knee without knee pads to realize how much your knee pads are doing for you.
So I'm going to do a brief overview of your skate parts, just for anybody that doesn't know what something is or that might have a question. Okay, so you have the boot of your skate, which, as you can see, mine are pretty roughed up. This is from falling at the bruisery. So you can see this on this side, and there's none of that on this side. So super cool. The other thing that I'll point out while we're talking about the boot of your skate is, I don't know if you guys can see this, but I have some areas on my skate that the laces are done a little differently. If you have foot pain when you're skating, I would highly recommend looking into different lacing patterns, especially if you run into issues with like your heel slipping or maybe your toe box is too tight. There's several different ways that you can lace your skates so that they fit your foot better. I have a very small heel compared to my instep, so I have my laces locked at the top. I have some spaces here to give my foot more room. And you can't see because I have a toe cover, but I have the first set of my eyelets on my skate skipped so that it gives me more room in my toe box. So if you have pain or issues with like toenails or foot issues, when you're skating, think about researching different lacing patterns because it could make a difference in the way your skate feels and the mobility you have when you're skating. Okay, so you have our boot. We have our plate here, which is this piece. Then you have your trucks, which are these pieces here. One thing that I'll point out is you have this, your kingpin bolt here that controls the movement of your trucks. I don't know if you guys can see this, but they move back and forth. Both typically, these are kept on the tight side. I personally, as a jammer, keep mine looser, so it gives me more side-to-side mobility. This is something you want to check occasionally if you're having issues with crossovers or you feel like you don't have the side-to-side movement. This might be something that you could adjust, but they do loosen over time. So it's something whenever you're doing your skate maintenance that you kind of want to keep an eye on how loose they are. And if it's something like if you feel like your skate's been a little too wobbly, something that you can tighten up to give you a little bit more stability. And when you're adjusting these, you want to make sure that you're not changing them a lot. You want to do maybe a quarter of a turn, either tightening or loosening, and then skate on it for a little bit, see how it feels. It's not something you want to adjust drastically because it could really change the way your skate feels and change the way it grips and stuff when you stop and things like that. You have here are your cushions. I know some people change their cushions. I don't know if it's out of laziness or what, but I've never changed mine. These skates are about 3 years old. I don't know. There are different hardness of cushions that are supposed to give you a little bit more, a different type of feel when you're skating and a different type of play with the movement of your trucks and things like that. Also up here, you have a part that you don't see very often, which is your pivot cup. They occasionally will break. It's kind of hard to show you where it's at, but right in here, you guys can see that, right down in there. And then there's also different bolts and stuff on the bottom of your skates, but you want to make sure stay there. Nathan realized that he was missing 3 out of the 4 bolts that kept his plate onto his boot, which could have been really bad if he lost the other one. So when you're doing your skate maintenance, make sure you don't have any missing pieces. Make sure that there's nothing rusted or nothing that looks broken. This plate is a little bit thicker.
It did not fall off if you only had 1 left on.
Listen, he was like, why is my skate so floppy? And he was like, it's like flopping. What's going on? I was like, dude.
It's like he had flip-flops on. Like,
It's like you're missing some very important pieces. That's why it's flopping. Anyway, so the one thing I will say, this plate is a little bit better because it has like a thicker piece here. My first pair of skates that were like learner derby skates, they have a very thin piece of metal like right at this joint here, and I broke the plate and wondered for a little bit, like, why does this skate feel different than the other one? Like, if your skates start feeling different or weird, take them off, look at the pieces, because we spend so much time on them. If it feels different, there's a reason. Like, it's not, there's some reason that it feels different. And I had broken my plate. There are other times something feels weird and I have a chunk out of my wheel. So if it feels weird, take your skate off, look at it. And if you don't see something, maybe ask one of your other league mates to take a look at it and see if they see anything that looks funny. So then obviously we also have our toe stop, which is very important. These need to be changed when you can see metal or when you start shooting sparks at the bruisery. One thing I will recommend, and I think a lot of people do this, is we typically, so once one of them gets worn down pretty far, the one that I favor, I will take the one from the other skate, put it on that one, and then take a new one. So I don't always have 2 brand new ones on. I rotate through them, if that makes sense. So that you're not, that way you're using all of both toe stops instead of having one that's halfway used, one that's down to the metal, and then you put on a full new pair. Use the one that is, you still got some life in. Also, the other thing I will say about toe stops is they usually sell them in short stem and long stem. It's hard. For a long time, I wore long stem in my skates, and then I went to a skate shop and the guy looked at it and he's like, do you know you're wearing a hole in the bottom of your boot because you're wearing the wrong length of toe stop? So if you're not sure, I would recommend trying to talk to someone that might have an idea. A lot of times you can feel, like, take out the insole from the inside of your skate, go in there, feel if there's any kind of deformity from the toe stop being too long and pressing into the boot. So I use short stem toe stops. I keep mine pretty low, but I will also say just be cognizant of how high or how low you use your toe stops and what kind of toe stop you might need. If you're not sure, ask a veteran skater. They might be able to kind of shed some light, because in my process of learning stuff, I was wearing toe stops that were too big, but then I also ripped threads out of my toe stop thing because I had my toe stops too low and they ripped them out. So yeah, Any questions about any of that?
I was just gonna say the same thing happened to me, and it was really scary, and it's like prone to like ankle breaking. You should have it like if you do have a long stem, make sure it's like 6 threads or more, like at least screwed in. Mine was only like 3 or 4 because I like them really low, and it like just snapped in the middle of skating.
Yep, it's not fun. It's not fun. Mine broke during a game, and my pivot was very far away from me, and it was a traumatic experience, so I would not recommend it. The other thing I will say is play with the height of your toe stops. A lot of times they say 2 or 3 fingers for your toe stop. I like mine probably about 3 fingers. So I know some people like 2 fingers between their back wheel. If you pop it up on your, in case you don't know what I'm talking about.
No one's gonna say anything.
If you pop your skate up on the toe stop, I'm talking about 2 fingers between the wheel and the ground, or 3 fingers between the wheel and the ground. This is educational, Dana. Don't try to make it anything else. So I would say somewhere between there is where you want to be. If you can fit more than 3 fingers underneath there, you probably want to adjust it. If it's less than 2 fingers, probably. But the one thing I will say about, and this is really important, thanks for bringing this up, this piece has a tendency to get stripped if you're using a tool that is not exactly the right size, or if you have, I don't know about you guys, but I spent a lot of time using tools that were not skate tools because I don't know, Nathan has tools. I thought tools were tools. It was fine. But I would really recommend spending the, I don't know what, like $15. Like they're not super expensive for an actual skate tool. This is the one that I have now. I really like it because it's got like it's got 3 different wrenches.
Yeah.
Socket things. I don't know. Anyway, and then one of them pulls off and it has the specific tool for this little piece.
Oh, that just blew my mind.
So,
Okay,
yeah,
great.
mine got stripped during a scrimmage because like it got loose, and then like I just needed it to be tightened right then and there, and I didn't fix it. So have tools on the bench. Give them to your coach.
Yeah.
Write your name on your tools. Write your name on your tools.
Yeah, because they will walk away.
So many wrenches stolen. So many.
This one is a Powerdyne. I don't know, like if anybody wants to Amazon it. I really like it. I have Rydell skates. I'm sure that the toe stop thing is the same for all of them, but it might be a little different on the axle nuts and things like that. But I really like this one, and I think it was like $12 on Amazon or something stupid like that. When I finally bought it, I was mad at myself for not doing it sooner. Okay, so the other thing I will say is if you don't have covers on the toes of your skates, I would really recommend it, because especially the practice space that we have, it will destroy the toes of your skates. You guys can kind of see that a little bit on the sides of my skate from rubbing against the floor of the bruisery. The toe gets even worse. There's tons of different options. These are crocheted with cotton yarn. If anybody wants a pattern, let me know, I'll send it to you. There's leather ones that probably work better than these, but I don't know, I like them. Some people use duct tape. I mean, there's lots of options.
Is duct tape considered not sufficient?
You know, some people do use duct tape, and I would say duct tape is probably better than nothing. I would be concerned about the duct tape damaging the leather and not being as, I don't know, I feel like you'd probably, it not being as adhered to it as well as something that's maybe laced on.
It's not as gentle to a leather boot. So like most people when
Yeah.
you start, you're on your R3s and that's fake leather. So you can duct, in my opinion, you can duct tape that up all
Oh
you
yeah,
want.
duct tape
But once
R3s
you
all
get
want.
really like leather boots, then yeah, I'd suggest not using duct tape. That's just my opinion. And then
Yeah.
get a cover.
I think I would say also if you start spending a lot of money on your skates, you might want to protect them a little bit more than duct tape. But
Yeah.
I also, like, if one of my toe guards like busts a hole in it, like I'll put duct tape on it. Like,
Oh yes.
I don't care about the leather on my skates because they're fucked up anyways. So
Thanks.
Yeah, I would, it definitely, there is a definite difference between like styles of skates and the material that your skate's made out of and how it would handle. I personally probably wouldn't put duct tape on my skates. At this juncture, my old skates, yeah, I probably would have because they were
Okay.
dumb. But so just let that be your guide. But I mean, I think that the leather ones you can usually get for like $10. So
All right.
I don't know how much a roll of duct tape is, but I feel like it's probably comparable.
Going on Amazon now.
So talk about the things that I use to clean my skates. Bus sent out a really great list of things to gather. So you'll have your tools. This is the one that I use, and then a bearing punch, which is around here somewhere. If you don't have a bearing punch, you can use a screwdriver, but I will say, be careful, don't stab yourself. And this will make your life a lot easier. And again, I think it's like $10 or something like that. The tools are not super expensive. Once you buy them, as long as, like B said, write your name on it because these grow legs too. Anyway, I would recommend investing in a bearing punch. It's, I don't know, not expensive and makes taking the bearings out of your skates really easy. Then I have Bearing Lube. You can't tell that's what it is because I think I got some of it on the outside of the container and now there's no label. But it is the one that was in the list that Bus sent. As far as for your bearings, you can use a jar, you can use a Tupperware. I have one of these that someone that I used to skate with gave to me when they retired. It is a little bottle that you put your bearings on this screw, and then you put the cleaner in, put your bearings on, you shake it, helps clean them. I also made one of these with a Gatorade bottle and stuff from Home Depot that I used until someone gave me this when they saw me using my homemade Gatorade bottle that I had drilled a hole into. It worked fine. You can probably find the pattern on Pinterest, which was I think where I found it, or like the tutorial on Pinterest of how to make one. Basically, you just get spacers, a big screw, a nut, and a washer.
I like that you managed to build your own bearing cleaner bottle, but didn't know what a wrench was called.
Listen, we all have skills, okay?
Listen, it wasn't on Pinterest, okay?
So the first thing I like to do is to take off my wheels because you probably can't see this now, but maybe you can. There's a lot of dirt and gunk from where I skated outside. And if you take the wheels off your skate, you're gonna see lots of dirt and grime from the bruisery, probably some hair, not mine because it's not. The other thing I like to have handy are lint-free cloths that I have. These are just some of Nathan's old cut-up shirts. So one of them is a thermal, so it's textured. And then the others are just like plain white t-shirts that I've cut up. So when they get grease and stuff all over them, if I completely destroy them, I can chunk it in the garbage. But I usually wash them and keep them for the next time I clean my gunky skates. So I'm gonna start by taking off my wheels. So if you all wanna join me in this endeavor, The other thing I will point out is there are different types of nuts that you can use on your skates. The ones most skates come with are metal. The ones that I have on my skate are like a plastic shield cover. So I don't know if you guys can see this very well, but it has like an extended shield around it that is supposed to keep dirt and gunk off of your bearing. They work pretty good. The one thing I will say is that I try to keep a closer eye on them than I necessarily would metal ones, just because with them being plastic, I feel like they're more likely to wear quicker. That being said, the nuts have a tendency that if you've gotten them wet to rust. If they get to a point where they're rusted and maybe their structural integrity is slightly compromised, should probably order a new set. I think most derby sites have bearing, nut, axle nuts. Is that what they're called?
I think so. I don't know.
Anyway, these are bionic plastic nuts. You can order them from most derby websites, and they're not expensive. They're like, I don't know, $5 or something. So if you're ordering some gear and you haven't replaced your nuts in a while, it wouldn't hurt to have an extra set on hand. So I'm going to take off my wheels so that I can use these lovely cloths to wipe down my metal trucks and plates and all of that fun stuff. So while we do that, anybody have any questions or anything they want to add?
They're called axle lock nuts, and they're
Oh,
$6. Yep, you were.
I don't know if you guys can see this, but these are pretty gross. And they're gross, but I wiped them down before I went and skated outside a couple, I don't know, times a construct. I don't know how long ago it was, but I do think on the note of like the plastic versus metal lock nuts, I don't know. I like the plastic ones. Nathan does not like the plastic ones. He feels like his wheels have too much movement. I like that. It's, I guess, up to personal preference. They do come in a lot of fun colors. I just have black because I'm boring. These I will throw in a little bit of soapy water, clean them, and make sure that they are very, very dry before I put them back on my skates. If you have metal ones, you don't want to clean those with water, obviously. You'll set those aside with your bearings, and you can clean them in the same solution that you clean your bearings in. Some people use the quick release ones. I don't know about that. That makes me nervous. I feel like I'm clumsy enough that I would kick them just the wrong way and it would fly off or something stupid.
Isn't that what you have, Beep?
How would you recommend them? Do you like them?
Well, I think that everyone that scrimmaged with me has seen my wheel come off, so worth it.
I don't want to skip a step or anything, but right now I've been working on getting the bearings out with the little tool that you showed, the little like white one. Yeah. I'm wondering if there's just like some sort of little tidbit of how to make this work better, or oh, go ahead, Buzz. Yes.
No, I find if you have your bearing in your skate, because I just got all mine out, is if you pull it towards, like you're like put it in and then pull it towards you.
So like an angle, right?
Yeah,
like angle it. Yep. Okay, because I think I keep thinking
all
like a
the
straight
way around.
out.
No,
and then when I do straight out, okay.
The other recommendation I would make is if you stick it in there and it's really stuck, kind of wiggle it back and forth.
Yeah. And
then pop it out.
Oh my God. Okay, I don't mean to be weird, but you guys are making this look really easy. I struggle all the time with this actually.
Yeah.
Also, it kind of just depends, like, you know, how
often I clean them, because I don't, so I feel like they rust in a little bit. So that's on me.
You said it, Jedi, not me. But yeah, I mean, it depends on how grimy they are. Like if there's like a layer of very thick, very angry grime, that's going to be a little harder to get out. Now that I have my wheels off, I'm going to take a cloth and I'll probably put a little bit of, so for the boot, the leather, I'll put a little bit of water on it, like just so that it's damp to get this dried on mud off of it. But when I go down to the metal, I'm gonna put a little bit of alcohol on here to wipe that away. Does that make sense? So I'm not gonna use water to clean, not even really a lot, like just damp, like very, very small amount of liquid on your rag or your cloth or whatever the heck you want to call it. I usually wipe down my skate and my plate and all of that first. I don't know why. There's not really a reason for it other than just getting all of the gunk off of it. Okay, so I'm gonna continue wiping down my skates because mine are really gross. Make sure you get around all of your cushions, and now I'm realizing that maybe I should have shown the parts of skates while my wheels were off because it's a lot easier to see. But you know, next time. I would just say make sure you clean as much as you can in all of these little crevices. You can see how like stuff builds up. What about you guys? Anybody finding hair in their wheels or their trucks?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Around my toe stops is pretty gnarly.
That's one of those things that I kind of forget about until I take off my wheel and I'm like, whoa, my gosh, where did this come from?
When you are taking apart the bearings, are you supposed to take off both sides of the cover?
If both sides come off. That was another thing I was going to talk about. The bearings that I have in my outdoor wheels, the cover actually does not come off. It is a pressed bearing. So you can't remove this cover, as to where the ones that I typically wear have the cover that you can remove, which you'll want to do before we go to clean those.
Are the covers supposed to only be flat if you can remove them? Because both came out really easily, but this other one looks a little bit more important and substantial.
That's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gotta be careful when I line the bearings back up. Make sure the balls go in the hole.
Yeah, I know you're not going to be very good at that, but if you have like a little safety pin or something, you can like align them the right way and then push it in.
Oh, it's gonna take all night. Okay, thank you.
So I will say, so like the bearings that I have, they only have this cover that comes off on one side. This other side is more open. This is the side that you want to put to the inside of your wheel. Mm-hmm. Also, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent about bearings, and people that have skated a long time are free to disagree with me. I buy cheap bearings, especially skating in places like the Bruisery. Because one, I know myself, I'm not going to clean them as often as I need to, and I don't want to spend a ton of money on ceramic bearings and then them be garbage in the same amount of time like a cheap pair of bearings is going to be. So I personally don't see a huge benefit spending a ton of money on bearings. I just get like, what is it, like Reds?
Yep.
Like just the cheap ones, they work. Other side note, if you can hear your bearing when you spin it, or if you're skating on the track and you're like, what's that noise? you probably need to clean your skates. Or if you spin your wheel and it just stops, you probably have a bad bearing.
Do you ever take off your trucks? Like, do you ever actually just really like take all of it off to clean it? The cushions?
So I don't.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, I don't. Some people I know do. I just am nervous because I've known people that they do take them all apart, and then when they put them back together, the skate doesn't roll straight.
Okay.
So like, it's not like, and I don't know.
No,
I'm just not brave enough to do it. I mean, I guess you can. I'm sure. I mean, I know that there are tons of people that probably do it. It's just not something I've ever done.
I did on my R3s. I did replace my own like cushions or bushings, whatever you call them.
Yep.
I remember talking to Carmen about it, and I was like, "What if it's not straight?" She's like, "Well, you'll figure that out pretty quick if it's not." And that was
well,
but
yeah,
with these skates, I don't think I have, because I don't want to mess up the kingpin, and I don't want to mess up anything. So
yeah. Have any of you, the rest of you, have you ever taken your skate fully apart? Like, I just don't have that kind of faith in myself personally.
I've done it many times, but I don't really see a benefit in doing it necessarily.
Yeah.
I used to do it because of the pivot cup that I'd have to replace. And I've also replaced my cushions a couple times, but I've never had any issues putting everything back together, but I don't do it as a regular maintenance thing.
I took a clinic at Beat Me Halfway, and we took them all apart. And then I had to like race to put them back together because I was in a scrimmage right after the clinic.
Oh.
But it was with me and Vakilla had our skates all torn apart. And we're like, we have to scrim in 15 minutes. So we had to like put them back together. It's not as scary as it looks. I mean, it can only put, but it's a pain in the butt. It's a lot of parts and it's a lot of pieces, and there really is no added benefit unless you're replacing a pivot cup or a cushing or what have you.
So germs, as someone who's replaced a pivot cup, like, is there something you can tell everyone that was an indicator to you that you needed to replace it?
My skates felt funny. I don't remember, like, they felt like more wobbly.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out why. And so then once I turned them over, I could see like broken parts of like the pivot shield or whatever B called it, and was like, that doesn't look normal. So then I took it all apart, and it was like crunched up little pieces of white plastic inside of it.
Yep.
So that
makes sense. So that goes back to the point I made earlier. If your skate feels weird, look at it. This is probably not the best approach, but I only rotate my wheels when I get damage to them. So I like to skate on the halos, and as much as I love the way that they skate, they have a tendency to one, not last as long, and they get chunks taken out of them.
Yep.
So when I notice that there are chunks in my wheels, I'll rotate them to maybe like from the outside to the inside, things like that. Is that what you mean?
Yep. I was just gonna say that also it's good to look at them and see if they're starting to cone a little bit, and what that means is like like they should have kind of like a sharper edge on the outside. And so if you notice they're starting to like round and kind of get domey, then you should probably switch them. And you might notice that like one wheel like gets a lot more use than other wheels. And so you might rotate that one around, just if you can't afford new wheels or whatever, sometimes moving them around a little bit will help you get a little more life out of them. Or like Havoc was saying with her toe stop, I'll buy a 4-pack of wheels, but I won't put them all on my skates at once. I'll grab one and replace if there's a bad wheel and then go that way. So just keeping an eye on them for that.
Yeah. The other thing I will say is I skate on different, different hardness of wheels. Like I don't use all one kind. I know Germs doesn't use all one kind. Like we mix hardness. And so like sometimes changing them up that way can kind of make your wheels last longer. If you're not sure about wheel patterns or like how if you're not sure about how to change up your wheels, there's lots of resources online to kind of look and see what might work for you. There's lots of different patterns.
Yeah, it also really depends on like the style of skating that you are doing, like what you're
Absolutely.
So any decisions like that should be made with the consideration of like, are you jamming mostly? Are you trying to work on your edges? Are you working on hockey stops? Like,
absolutely. 100% correct.
I think some of the links that I have talk a little bit about that and like the benefits of each of those. So definitely take that into consideration.
Yes.
And if you have questions, ask a vet or somebody else, and they might be able to help you. Or someone who has a similar build and a similar style to you in skating. If you ask them what they skate on, that's also really helpful.
Okay. So I would say for cleaning and doing this skate maintenance, I would recommend, really and truly, if I'm being honest, we should all probably do it every, probably 4 times a year, every 3 months, once a quarter. Realistically, I probably do it every 6 months. But it's definitely good to make sure that your skate's in working order, make sure your wheels aren't all crazy, make sure your bearings aren't locking up, that kind of thing. A good way to test your bearing, you hold it, spin it, it should continue to spin for a little bit, shouldn't just completely stop. It shouldn't be difficult to spin. If it is, probably time to replace them. Also, I like to clean my wheels from time to time if they get junk on them. Sometimes you'll skate at a place that like puts down like different types of like resin kind of stuff to make the track sticky, or if you skate outside and they get like, I don't know, maybe run over or something, or they just get gunk on them. So I'll wipe down my wheels. Nothing too aggressive. I usually just use a little bit of water and like a mild soap, and then let them dry very, very well before you put your bearings back in them. So if you put your bearings back in them and they're still wet, then you're gonna have a situation and it'll get rusty. And I don't know if you've ever tried to get rusty bearings out of a wheel, but that's not a fun experience.
When we're taking one of like the cover off of the bearing,
Like
what
a shield.
Yeah, the shield. What is good to use to do so?
So I usually use either like a push pin or like a needle. If you have a small enough darning needle, you can use that. But something that is not going to damage it. So the smaller, the better. Anybody else have a recommendation of something they like to use? I'm using just like a sewing pin, and it's working pretty good at pulling off the.
The first time I ever did this, we had like a big gathering, and someone had like metal dental tools. Yeah, like one of the like the dental tool that has like obviously the pick to it. So then I went out to Target and bought some dental tools next to the toothpaste. They were plastic, and plastic does not work. They're very flimsy.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Dental tools.
Yeah, it was very, I mean, because that crooked bend to it really like had that nice hook.
Yeah, That's actually a good idea. Probably find those off of Amazon.
Yeah.
What do you think, Bus? Can you find dental tools on Amazon?
Amazon, sorry, I just have I have kids everywhere. They're everywhere.
Well, I don't know. You were just seemed to be our Amazon expert.
Amazon and Walgreens, because I have the dental tools, and that's where I got mine.
So just these are Red's bearings. This is what it looks like when you take off the cover. You can see those in there. Again, the back side of mine does not come off. So it's just the one side. So this is a great example of a bearing that I need to replace. It does not spin.
Like, do you need to replace or do you just need to clean it? Like,
oh, I'm going to clean it and then I'm going to check it.
Got it. Okay, cool.
If after cleaning it still rolls like this, then I need to change it out.
That makes sense. This is a fun question. What is your opinion about taking the actual plastic, because there's balls in there, obviously. Go for it. We took the plastic things out. It took me over an hour to get all the balls back in.
No, I don't recommend it.
At that point, yeah, I learned. I was like, unless you really unless you want to be a pro, ever since then, I don't encourage taking plastic video out.
So where were these comments when I asked that question before I took all of them out? Where were these comments?
You took the balls out?
Were you working ahead? Were you working ahead?
I said that explicitly with the opening of my. That's fine. I've got nowhere to be. It's fine.
Oh, now
this what you're going to be doing with your quarantine, putting balls back into your bearings.
One does. This one hardly moves at all.
So thanks to the people leading it, y'all did nothing for me.
I guess I'm so sorry. I didn't understand your question.
I'm taking it personally, and I'm going to go steal shit from your.
From my what?
From your island. Sorry, I muted myself out of rage.
Oh. So I'm a firm believer that if it takes you that long, then it's probably not a beneficial use of your time. And again, like I buy the cheap bearings because I don't want to have to spend forever like fighting to get them back together. So if it doesn't work after I do this process, then I'm going to replace it. Like if I bought that's why I don't buy really expensive bearings, because then I would have to deal with it.
I think I agree. I think that because they make like ceramic bearings or something. So if you're going to spend a bazillion dollars, totally understand. But yeah, I like the Reds. They're they get the job done.
And honestly, like if you're playing at a very high competitive rate, maybe those bearings are going to make a difference. But for me, I don't feel like it's going to, it's not going to propel me to whatever.
Especially on, like you said, at the bruisery, our floor is gross. Like,
yeah, they're gonna get.
Don't bring nice things in there.
Yeah, they're gonna become garbage pretty much instantly. So,
can I shake these little plastic things that were holding the balls in my bearing cleaner, or is that bad for it?
Nope. You can clean those with everything else.
No, don't do it.
Oh, no, is it plastic?
Yeah,
plastic. You want to put them in just like warm soapy water. Don't put them in anything else.
Thank you.
Just in case that didn't come through, because she was kind of breaking up. Don't put these in the bearing cleaner. The shields, clean them in soapy warm water, not with your bearings.
So then you have to really make sure they're super dry before you put them back on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I might leave all these out before I put them back together then.
Yep, it's great to do this like during a break or on. Good God, my bearings are awful. On a break or something.
I use compressed air, like the canned air.
That's smart. Yep, that's a great idea. Compressed air. Never thought about that. Yeah, that's a great idea. So do you do that before, after? Doesn't matter. Like before or after you clean
everything. No, I clean everything, put them like, and then have them all sitting on the towel while I'm like doing everything. So they're all, and I like dry them, hand dry them, and then I just go through with the compressed air and like double check that they're all dry. I don't go like crazy or anything with it.
So I'm using this container. I can only put so many bearings in here at a time. I don't know what kind of containers you guys are using. I would make sure that the number of bearings you put in there to where like your bearings are able to kind of move around and the solution is able to move in and out of your bearings. If you can keep them separated, like with this contraption, it allows the solution to kind of wash them a little bit better. But if you don't, just don't stuff them all in a small container. Just try to, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, you don't want them to overlap, right?
Yeah.
I bought this. It's bionic, and it has sort of like the same thing, but it has more like a, I don't know. But I ran out of like liquids. I can only fit. Yeah, I think that one's better. It looks like that's like you can fit all of your bearings on that one.
So you can only fit, you can fit 8. So like one skate worth.
I bet you Amazon has like more of this bearing wash stuff. It's probably.
Oh, I'm sure. Again, I typically use rubbing alcohol on mine. I don't have that, so I use a little bit of Costco vodka. I don't know if that's okay. What do you think, Germs? Is that okay?
Little for you, little for the bearings. You gotta get it around in your mouth when you do it. You gotta clean your insides.
I just mean it can't be much different than rubbing alcohol, right?
I don't know.
Guess I'll find out.
I believe in you.
I would say I don't endorse this. Like, get a proper thing. But my bearings are really bad and I need to clean them, and I'm not going to find rubbing alcohol at the store. I checked Amazon and it was ridiculous. I also couldn't find mineral spirits at the store.
Here's my question though. Was that flavored vodka or
no? My bearings will not smell like raspberry.
Too bad.
You don't need a lot of liquid. I filled mine up to the amount of vodka that I had, which is about right here. Basically, once you put the lid on, you're just going to shake it. It's very unexciting. I know that you can use lots of different cleaners. Like if you look online, there are citrus cleaners that you can use. I would say that those are probably a little bit harder on your bearings than using alcohol or like mineral spirits. And also be cognizant of how you dispose of that liquid. So once I shake mine, get them all nice and gross, there's a very disgusting amount of particles at the bottom of this. I will take them out and use one of my cloths and just kind of tap them on there to get the extra moisture out. Again, using vodka or alcohol or mineral spirits, I'm sure works the same way. It's gonna evaporate, so you don't have to worry about it the same way as if, obviously, don't use water. Don't use water. Unless you wanna buy new bearings, then maybe use water. So once I kind of get these as dry as possible at this point, then I'm going to switch them out for the other bearings and do the same thing. I mean, I've definitely dropped my mouth guard on the bruisery floor, which is a horrifying experience.
Yeah.
We don't talk about those things though. We just
look at each other with shame and continue on.
It's really good.
We say our goodbyes.
Coaching, you get rid of like everyone, and then you just put it back in.
Uh-huh.
I had the great
day
idea. I wish Frogmouth put a little pocket in their, like the arm thing, like so you can put your mouth guard into the little pocket.
Instead of being like a gross person and sticking it in my sports bra like a nasty person.
I emailed them and they're like, "Thanks for your input," and that was it.
You were like, "No, listen, this is brilliant."
That is a genius idea.
After seeing Miracle Whips put it in there, like after every jam, she takes her like we should put a pocket there.
I do too, and it's so disgusting because I think about like how close it is to my armpit and like how somebody else's armpit was probably just there.
Right there.
Sometimes I put it in my waistband of my pants.
Mm-hmm.
So that could, I mean, that's gross, I guess.
So fun story. When a couple of years ago when I broke my ankle playing, I obviously went to the emergency room and had to go to the bathroom while I was there. Somebody helped me go to the bathroom, and then I don't know. Anyway, ended up back home, and when I started going through my gear, when it was, you know, almost time to start skating, I couldn't find my mouth guard. And then I realized it was in the waist. I had put it in the waistband of my pants. Whenever I started talking to the EMT, I just pulled it out of my mouth and stuck it in the waistband of my pants. So it would have fallen out when I went to the bathroom. So I had the thought that like somebody found this gross, nasty mouth guard in a hospital bathroom and had to deal with that. And I am I am the person that caused that.
They've seen worse.
I'm sure they have. I mean, at least it was mostly clean, probably.
9 times out of 10, I forget to take it out of my sports bra, and then when I go to take a shower, I take my sports bra off, and it goes flying into the bathroom. And I'm like, oh, not the toilet! It's never landed in the toilet, but definitely many a times on the bathroom floor.
You do realize now that you said that the next time it happens, it will land in the toilet.
Listen, the next time we skate, I will be so happy.
You won't care. You don't care if it lands in the toilet.
I will fish it right out.
So once you have all your bearings cleaned, and in case we miss this, you want to put the shields in some soapy water. Let them kind of sit. Well, I let mine sit for a minute because they had a very thick coating of grossness on them. And I'll use one of the lint-free cloths to dry them and wipe away anything else that's left as far as dirt and grime and grossness. The next thing that you want to do once your bearings are completely dry is to apply a couple of drops of the Bearing Lube in the side that is open, 1 to 2 drops, and then I like to spin it a couple of times. I don't really know if you have to do that, but I feel like it helps evenly distribute it. I don't know.
It sounds good.
I mean,
you said distribute, and that's like a 10-point word, so.
Well, I'm glad that it fosters confidence. So once you do that, I will let these sit until my shields are completely dry. Again, you don't want water getting on these. It results in them getting rusted really bad, and then you'll have to buy new bearings. So once you'll place them back on, and then you can put them back in your wheels. I typically use the bearing punch to make sure that they go in all the way, as opposed to just trying to push them in. You want to make sure most wheels have a little stopper in the middle of the hub to keep them in place.
Do all wheels automatically have that? I guess I just assumed all mine do.
All of the ones that I've ever used do. So I would assume that they do. I would say that they either probably have it or the hub is so that the bearings sit up next to each other. But I'm sure they have, most of them have a divider. Again, I'll clean my wheels using just soap and water, the same kind of stuff that I use to clean the shields. The other thing I'll say about when you put your skates back together, make sure whenever you tighten down your nuts, your lug nuts, to make sure that you're not tightening them so much that your wheel doesn't easily turn. You don't want to tighten it down so much that the wheel doesn't turn. You want it to have a little bit of wiggle in it, very little. Not so much that your wheel is moving, you know, a great deal back and forth, but you want it to have a little bit of play, just so that the wheel can turn easily. Anything I've forgotten, Jedi?
I don't think so. I think we covered everything.
All right. Any other questions that anybody can think of or tips?
What I usually do when I put wheels on, not with the clippies, is I just go ahead and tighten them all the way down, and then I'd like do an equal turn for each wheel just to like get them all at the same.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And like try to make sure that the axle is like at least flush with the nut, because sometimes people loosen too much and there's not enough thread for it to hold on to, and then it comes off and then your wheel comes off.
Yep, that's great. So I would say if you hold up your skate and you shake it back and forth and you can hear your wheels moving back and forth, probably should tighten your nuts a little bit more.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool.
Thanks for doing this, you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for joining and giving lots of input and not leaving me here by myself. This is much more fun this way.